Christmas night, 9 p.m., right now. Millions of people are scrolling through their social media feeds, looking at perfectly curated photos of happy families gathered around dinner tables. They're seeing couples posting romantic selfies in front of Christmas trees. They're watching stories of children tearing open presents, surrounded by grandparents, aunts, uncles, everyone smiling for the camera. The message is clear and loud. This is what Christmas is supposed to look like. This is what happiness looks like. This is what success looks like. And then there's him. A man in his mid-40s, sitting alone in his living room. The only light comes from a small lamp in the corner and maybe the soft glow of a fireplace. No family dinner happening in his dining room. No partner sitting beside him on the couch. No children running around. No obligations weighing on his shoulders. Just him, perhaps with a book in his hand. Maybe a glass of wine on the table beside him, surrounded by complete and total silence. If you walked past his house, you might feel sorry for him. Society would definitely call him lonely. Women scrolling through their phones right now would look at this scene and think something must be wrong with him. Something must be broken. He must be so sad. But here's what nobody sees. What nobody wants to acknowledge. He's smiling. Not the fake smile people put on for Christmas photos. A genuine smile. Real contentment. The kind of peace that comes from deep within. He's more relaxed than he's been in years. More at peace than he ever was during those chaotic Christmas dinners with extended family. More content than he ever felt trying to make everyone else happy while ignoring his own needs. This man isn't suffering. He's not broken. He's not missing out on life. He's actually figured something out that most people spend their entire lives never understanding. So why would a successful man over 40, a man who could easily be at a party right now, who could have a date, who could be surrounded by people, why would he choose to spend Christmas night completely alone? What is he thinking? What is he feeling? What is he doing in that quiet room that makes him more content than being surrounded by people? And here's the question that's driving women over 30 absolutely crazy. What does this mean? What does it say about modern relationships? What does it say about what men actually want? What does it say about her own life choices? Today, I'm going to reveal the real reasons behind this growing trend. And I need you to understand something before we go any further. What I'm about to share with you is going to challenge everything you think you know about successful men, about happiness, about relationships, and about what the holidays are really supposed to mean. Because what society has been calling loneliness, what people have been judging as failure, might actually be the smartest, most courageous decision these men have ever made. And by the time we're done here, you're going to see Christmas and masculinity and independence in a completely different light. Let's start by talking about something that makes people uncomfortable. Something nobody wants to admit out loud, but everyone feels. Christmas has become a performance. It's become theater. It's become about appearances rather than genuine connection. And I'm not just talking about social media, although that's made it worse. I'm talking about the entire cultural expectation system we've built around this holiday. From the moment Thanksgiving ends, society hits you with a relentless message on repeat. You need to be surrounded by people. Not just any people, the right people. You need the perfect dinner with the perfect family. You need to buy expensive gifts, even if you can't afford them. Because that's how you show love. That's how you prove you're successful. That's how you demonstrate your worth as a human being. You need to attend parties thrown by people you barely know or don't even like. You need to smile for photos that will be posted online for others to judge. You need to decorate your house in a way that impresses the neighbors. You need to send cards to people you haven't spoken to in years. You need to prove to the world, and maybe more importantly to yourself, that your life is together. That you're happy, that you're normal, that you're winning at this thing called life. But here's the truth that's hiding underneath all of that pressure. The truth that men over 40 have started to recognize and acknowledge. For many of them, especially those who've been through brutal divorces, who've escaped toxic relationships, who've survived years of complicated family drama, Christmas isn't actually joy. It's not warmth and love and connection. When they're being honest with themselves, when they strip away the should and the supposed to and the expectations, what they find underneath is stress, anxiety, obligation, exhaustion. It's stress wrapped up in shiny paper and tied with a bow made of guilt. Think about what Christmas actually involves for a man over 40. If you're single or divorced, the pressure is immense and it comes from every direction. Your parents expect you to show up at their house and play the role of the dutiful son. Even if you're a grown man with your own life, they expect you to sit through the same conversations you've had 100 times, to answer the same questions about why you're not remarried yet, to listen to the same stories, to deal with the same family tensions that have existed for decades. Your siblings expect you to contribute to group gifts, to participate in family traditions you might not even enjoy, to pretend that everything is fine even when it's not. If you have children from a previous marriage, there's the complicated dance of custody arrangements, of trying to make sure your kids have a good Christmas while dealing with an ex-partner who might be using the holiday as leverage. There's the guilt of not being with your children on Christmas morning, or the stress of having them for only part of the day, of trying to cram all the magic and meaning into a few hours before they have to go back to their mother's house. There's the financial pressure of buying gifts that compete with what your ex-partner is buying, of trying to prove you're still a good father even though the family is broken. Your friends expect you to attend their parties, to show up with expensive bottles of wine, to be social and upbeat even if you're exhausted from work, even if you'd rather be anywhere else. Society expects you to be coupled up, because somehow, somewhere along the way, we decided that a man alone during the holidays must be failing at life. The commercials, the movies, the songs playing in every store, they all sell the same story on repeat. Christmas is about togetherness. Christmas is about family. Christmas is about romantic love. And if you're not experiencing those things, if you're not performing that version of Christmas, then something must be wrong with you. The financial burden alone is staggering. The average American spends between $800 and $1,000 on Christmas. For many men over 40 who've already been through divorce, who've already spent decades providing for families that fell apart, who've already spent years buying gifts to keep the peace or maintain appearances, that's not just money. That's sacrifice. That's stress. That's hours of work, days of work, translated into objects that will be opened, appreciated for maybe 5 minutes, and then forgotten. But men over 40 are starting to ask a different question. It's a simple question, but it's revolutionary in its implications. They're asking, who am I doing this for? Is this actually making me happy, or am I just going through the motions because I'm supposed to? Is this how I want to spend my limited time on this earth? Is this how I want to spend my hard-earned money? Is this how I want to spend my energy? And when they sit with those questions, when they answer them honestly without worrying about what other people will think, Many of them are arriving at the same conclusion. The answer is no. No, this isn't making me happy. No, I don't want to do this anymore. No, I'm not going to sacrifice my peace just to meet someone else's expectations. And so they're making a choice that shocks everyone around them. They're choosing to spend Christmas alone. And I need you to understand what I'm about to say, because this is crucial. They're not choosing this because they're antisocial. They're not doing this because they're bitter about past relationships. They're not giving up on life or connection or love. They're doing this because they've figured something out, something profound and powerful. They've realized that peace is more valuable than performance. They've learned that authenticity is more important than approval. They've discovered that their mental health and emotional well-being matter more than maintaining traditions that don't serve them. Any more so what actually happens when a man over 40 chooses to spend Christmas night alone. This is what women over 30 are desperate to understand. And it's what makes them uncomfortable, because it doesn't fit the narrative they've been fed their entire lives. Women have been taught from childhood, from every Disney movie and romantic comedy and love song, that a man alone must be suffering. He must be lonely. He must be incomplete. He must be desperately wishing for connection. The idea that a man could not only survive but actually thrive in solitude, that challenges everything our culture has taught us about happiness, about success, about what men need and want. When a man makes the conscious choice to spend Christmas in solitude, something powerful begins to happen. He starts to rediscover who he actually is underneath all the roles he's been playing. He reconnects with what he genuinely enjoys, not what his ex-wife wanted him to enjoy, not what his parents expected him to enjoy, not what society says a successful man should enjoy, but what actually brings him peace and satisfaction on a fundamental level. Maybe it's watching movies that nobody else in his life wanted to watch, films that make him think, that challenge him, that entertain him without judgment. Maybe it's cooking a meal exactly the way he wants it. Not the traditional turkey dinner that takes all day and creates dirty dishes and stress, but a perfectly cooked steak, medium rare, with exactly the sides he likes. Or maybe it's ordering takeout from his favorite restaurant without having to compromise or consider anyone else's preferences or dietary restrictions. Maybe it's going for a long walk through his neighborhood in the quiet morning hours while everyone else is still asleep, while the streets are peaceful and empty, while he can think his own thoughts without interruption. Maybe it's working on that business project he's passionate about, the one that got pushed aside during the chaos of the year, the one that might actually lead somewhere important. Maybe it's reading that book he's been wanting to finish, the one about philosophy or history or business strategy, the one that makes him think and grow. Maybe it's simply sitting in complete silence, breathing deeply, thinking, processing, being fully present with himself without anyone demanding his attention or energy or emotional labor. There's also the financial freedom aspect that people don't want to acknowledge because it sounds selfish, but it's real and it matters. When you opt out of the Christmas performance, when you choose not to participate in the gift-giving frenzy and the party circuit and the obligation spending, that money stays in your account. That $800 or $1,000 isn't spent trying to impress people or maintain appearances or fulfill expectations. Instead, it goes toward things that actually matter for your future. Your investments, your business, your retirement, your goals, your dreams. And it's not about being cheap or selfish. It's about being intentional and strategic with resources. You worked incredibly hard to earn, but perhaps the most significant thing that happens during this intentional solitude is mental clarity. This is what people really don't understand about why men choose this. In our modern world, we're constantly bombarded with noise. Physical noise, emotional noise, digital noise, social noise. Everyone wants something from you. Everyone has an opinion about how you should live. Everyone is pulling you in different directions. And all of that noise makes it impossible to hear your own thoughts, to connect with your own intuition, to understand what you actually want from life. Without all of that noise, without the obligations and the drama and the performance, men are finding space to ask themselves better questions. What do I actually value in life? Not what I was taught to value, but what genuinely matters to me when I'm being honest. Where am I going? What direction is my life heading, and is that the direction I want? What relationships in my life are genuine, based on real connection and mutual respect, versus relationships that are purely obligatory, maintained out of guilt or tradition or social pressure? What do I want the next chapter of my life to look like? What legacy am I building? What impact do I want to have? Who do I want to become? These aren't questions you can answer while managing family drama at a crowded dinner table. These aren't insights you can gain while making small talk at a party you didn't want to attend. These aren't realizations that come while you're performing happiness for a camera. These are questions that require solitude. They require silence. They require honest, uncomfortable silence. And men over 40 are creating that space for themselves, intentionally, courageously. Now I need you to understand something crucial, because this is where people get confused, where they project their own fears and insecurities onto these men's choices. What these men are experiencing is not loneliness, it's solitude, and there is a massive, fundamental, life-changing difference between those two states. Loneliness is isolation that you don't want. It's feeling disconnected from others and desperately wishing you had meaningful connection. It's a painful state marked by longing and emptiness. Solitude, on the other hand, is chosen isolation that recharges you, that restores you, that allows you to reconnect with yourself. It's intentionally creating space because you understand your own needs, and you're brave enough to honor them even when society judges you for it. Men over 40 who choose solo. Christmases aren't running away from connection. They're not avoiding intimacy. They're not giving up on relationships. They're running toward themselves. They're choosing to connect deeply with their own thoughts, their own values, their own peace. And from that place of internal connection, of self-knowledge, of peace, they're actually more capable of having genuine connections with others when they choose to, because they're not coming from a place of neediness or obligation. They're coming from a place of wholeness and choice. Now here's where this conversation gets really interesting. And it's the part that women, especially women over 30, struggle to understand. And I want to be clear, I'm not criticizing women here. I'm explaining a fundamental difference in how men and women are socialized, how they're taught to think about holidays and connection and happiness. Women are generally taught from early childhood that holidays equal connection, that Christmas is fundamentally about gathering, about emotions, about traditions, about togetherness. For many women, especially those in their 30s who are thinking about building families or who are watching their biological clocks tick, Christmas represents everything they've been taught they should want. A loving partner who shows up, a beautiful home decorated perfectly, children in matching pajamas opening presents, Extended family gathered around a table laden with food. That vision is beautiful. And for women who genuinely want that and who have healthy, functional families, it can be wonderful and fulfilling. But men, particularly men over 40 who've lived enough life to see through the illusions, men who've been through the fire of divorce or toxic relationships or family dysfunction, these men operate differently. They've spent years, often decades, providing for partners who didn't appreciate them. They've been taken for granted. They've played roles that drained their energy and spirit. They've sacrificed their own peace and happiness to meet other people's expectations. They've performed and performed and performed, and it left them empty. And then one day, they wake up. They have a moment of clarity where the fog lifts and they see things as they really are. And in that moment of clarity, they realize something powerful and liberating. I don't have to do this anymore. I don't have to perform. I don't have to pretend. I don't have to sacrifice my peace to meet someone else's expectations. I don't have to participate in traditions that don't serve me. I get to choose. I have agency. I have the right to prioritize my own mental health and well-being. And when they make the choice to spend Christmas alone, when they exercise that agency and set that boundary, society reacts. And the reaction is often harsh, especially from women. They say things like, "Don't you feel lonely?" But that question assumes loneliness rather than asking what the experience actually is. Don't you want family? That question assumes family is always positive and ignores the reality that some families are toxic. What's wrong with you? That question assumes something must be broken rather than considering that maybe something is finally right. Isn't this sad? That question projects sadness onto a situation that might actually be joyful. These questions, well-meaning as they might be, reveal a fundamental misunderstanding of masculine energy and how men recharge and find peace. These men aren't broken. They're free. They're not missing out. They're opting out of a system that doesn't serve them. They're not failing at life. They're succeeding on their own terms, by their own definition of success. They've learned something that most people never learn. Their value as men, as human beings, isn't determined by how many people are sitting at their dinner table or how impressive their Christmas celebration looks on Instagram. Let's go deeper into the psychology of this choice, because understanding the psychological foundations helps explain why this isn't just a trend but a movement. Why more and more men are making this choice every year. Many men over 40 are naturally introverted, not antisocial, not shy, but introverted, which means they recharge through solitude rather than social interaction. But society, throughout their entire lives, has forced them to perform extroverted behaviors. They've attended countless parties they didn't want to attend. They've made endless small talk with people they don't care about. They've smiled and nodded and played the role of the social, outgoing, gregarious man because that's what was expected. That's what bosses wanted. That's what partners demanded. That's what society said real men do. And holidays amplify this pressure exponentially. Suddenly, you're not just expected to be social for one evening. You're expected to be on, to be performing, for days or weeks at a time. Multiple parties, multiple gatherings, multiple performances. For an introverted man, this isn't just tiring. It's depleting. It's exhausting in a way that people who aren't introverted often can't understand. So when a man over 40 finally gives himself permission to skip all of that, to honor his introverted nature, to recharge in the way that actually works for his nervous system and personality. It's not sad. It's self-care. It's finally living authentically instead of performing a role. There's also the trauma response that our culture doesn't want to acknowledge because it's uncomfortable and messy. For men who've experienced toxic family dynamics, who've been through devastating divorces, who've endured years of holiday arguments and drama and dysfunction, Christmas can be a genuine trigger. The smell of certain foods can bring back memories of fights. The sound of certain songs can create anxiety. The expectation of gathering with certain people can cause stress that manifests physically. That affects sleep and appetite and peace of mind. When a man who's experienced this kind of trauma chooses to stay alone on Christmas, he's not avoiding life. He's protecting his mental health. He's choosing not to re-traumatize himself just because society says he should. He's drawing a boundary that says, my peace matters more than your expectations. My healing matters more than tradition. My well-being matters more than appearance. And that's not weakness. That's actually profound strength and self-awareness. But there's also something happening here that connects to something much older and deeper than modern psychology. Throughout human history, across cultures and traditions, men have sought periods of intentional solitude, vision quests, walkabouts, time alone in the wilderness, periods of contemplation and meditation. Think about the great leaders throughout history, the thinkers and innovators and spiritual figures who changed the world. So many of them had periods of intentional solitude where they gained clarity, where they connected with something deeper, where they found the strength and direction that would define their legacy. Modern men choosing solo Christmases are tapping into that same ancient principle. This isn't them inventing something new. This is them reconnecting with something old and fundamental about masculine energy and development. It's about self-reflection. It's about recharging that particular kind of energy that allows men to go back into the world and build and provide and lead. It's about connecting with purpose and direction. This isn't a symptom of a broken modern world. This is ancient masculine wisdom meeting contemporary reality. So let me paint you a detailed picture of what men over 40 are actually doing on Christmas night when they're alone. Because this is what women are most curious about. They're not sitting in a dark room drinking themselves into oblivion. They're not desperately scrolling through dating apps wishing they had someone there. They're not crying into their pillows feeling sorry for themselves. What they're actually doing is living intentionally, purposefully, in alignment with their values. And here's what that actually looks like in practice. Many of these men start their Christmas morning with a practice of gratitude. They might journal, writing down what they're grateful for from the past year, the challenges they've overcome, the growth they've experienced, the goals they've achieved, the lessons they've learned. They're taking stock of their lives, not in terms of what society says they should have accomplished, but in terms of their own progress on their own path. Then they move their bodies. They go for a run or a walk while the streets are quiet and peaceful. They lift weights in their home gym. They do yoga or stretching. They're honoring the connection between physical and mental health. And here's something important. For the first 2 hours of Christmas morning, many of them don't check their phones. No social media, no news, no text messages, no emails. They're not comparing their Christmas to anyone else's curated Instagram story. They're not exposing themselves to the noise and judgment and performance of the digital world. They're just present with themselves and the morning and the peace in the afternoon. They're doing things that actually bring them joy. cooking a meal they genuinely love, not the traditional fare that's expected, reading that book they've been meaning to finish, working on that side business they're building, learning that skill they're developing, playing that instrument they've neglected, creating something with their hands. The specific activity matters less than the intentionality behind it. They're choosing how to spend their time based on what serves them, not what impresses others. They might reach out to people who actually matter, having real conversations with friends or family members they genuinely care about, not obligatory phone calls where they pretend everything is fine, but real conversations where they can be honest and vulnerable and authentic. Video calls with their children where they're fully present rather than distracted. Texts with close friends sharing genuine thoughts rather than surface-level holiday greetings. In the evening, they're winding down intentionally. Maybe watching a movie they've been wanting to see. Maybe sitting by the fire just thinking. Maybe planning and preparing for the coming year. Setting goals. Reflecting on lessons learned. Envisioning what they want to create. And then they're going to bed early, getting quality rest so they can wake up the next morning refreshed and ready for whatever comes next. The through line in all of this isn't they're not just avoiding Christmas. They're not just hiding from the world. They're actively and consciously choosing how to spend one of the most culturally significant days of the year in a way that aligns with their values and serves their well-being. They're turning what society sees as loneliness into powerful solitude. They're transforming isolation into independence. They're converting judgment and expectation into freedom and authenticity. Now, let me share with you a truth that's going to make some people uncomfortable. But it needs to be said because it's the heart of the matter. Some of the loneliest people on Christmas are surrounded by family. They're sitting at crowded dinner tables with relatives, but emotionally they're completely disconnected. They're physically present, but mentally and emotionally absent. They're playing roles. They're maintaining appearances. They're going through motions they've gone through hundreds of times before. They're having the same surface-level conversations. They're avoiding the real issues that divide the family. They're pretending everything is fine when it's not. They're smiling for photos while feeling empty inside. They're performing connection without actually experiencing connection. And that kind of performative pseudo-connection is actually more lonely than being physically alone. Because at least when you're physically alone and you acknowledge it, you're being honest with yourself. But when you're surrounded by people and still feel alone, when you're performing togetherness while experiencing isolation, that's a special kind of painful loneliness that eats at your soul. Meanwhile, that man sitting alone in his quiet living room, the one society pities, the one women worry about, he's at peace. Real peace. Not the fake happiness of a Facebook post. He's honest with himself about who he is and what he needs. He's free from the exhausting work of pretending and performing. He's not trying to be anyone other than who he actually is. And there's a profound contentment that comes from that level of authenticity that people who are constantly performing will never experience. Society is going to judge men who make this choice. That's guaranteed. Family members are going to ask uncomfortable questions. Friends are going to express concern. Women are going to misunderstand and project their own fears and assumptions onto his situation. But men over 40 who choose this path, who have the courage to prioritize their peace over others' expectations, they have something that many others don't. They have authenticity. They have integrity. They have the courage to live in alignment with their actual needs and values, rather than performing to meet society's expectations. High value, Men understand a fundamental truth that average men miss, that most people never learn. It's better to be alone with genuine peace than to be surrounded by people while experiencing stress and obligation. It's better to honor your real needs than to perform for the approval of people who don't actually know you or care about your well-being. It's better to live authentically on your own terms than to live inauthentically on society's terms. Christmas alone, for these men, isn't about rejecting connection or love or family. It's about rejecting performance, rejecting obligation, rejecting the exhausting need to prove your worth through how impressive your holiday celebration looks to others. So if you're a man over 40 and you're spending Christmas alone this year by choice, I want you to hear this clearly. Hold your head high. You're not losing. You're winning in ways that most people will never understand because they're too afraid to question the status quo. You're protecting your peace, and peace is precious and rare in this chaotic world. You're honoring your boundaries, and boundaries are essential for mental health. You're investing in yourself, and you are your most important asset. You're breaking free from toxic expectations that have been holding you back. You're living authentically, and authenticity is the foundation of a meaningful life. You're choosing freedom over approval, and that choice takes more courage than most people ever develop. If people don't understand your choice, if they judge you or question you or express concern, remember that their judgment says more about their own insecurities and unexamined assumptions than it says anything about you or your choices. The modern high-value man knows that the best gift you can give yourself is the freedom to choose your own path, not just on random Tuesday in March, but especially on the days when society expects you to conform, especially on Christmas, because holidays should enhance your life, not diminish it. They should bring genuine joy, not manufactured happiness or obligatory stress. They should be chosen, not mandatory. And to the women over 30 who are trying to understand this trend, who are confused by why men are making this choice, I want you to hear this. This trend doesn't exist to hurt you or reject you. It's not about you at all. It's about men who've learned their worth. Men who've stopped performing roles that deplete them. Men who've chosen peace over approval. And if you can step back from your own expectations and cultural conditioning for a moment, you might recognize that there's actually something attractive about a man who's that clear about his values and that confident in his choices, a man who can be comfortable alone, who doesn't need constant validation or external approval, who has the strength and self-awareness to go against social pressure and choose what's right for him. That's a man who knows himself. That's a man who has internal stability. That's a man who won't make his partner responsible for his happiness because he's already found his own center. And that kind of man, when he does choose to be in a relationship, when he does choose to connect, he's choosing it from a place of wholeness rather than neediness. He's choosing to share his life rather than needing someone to complete it. If this message has resonated with you at all, if you're a man who's spending Christmas alone by choice, or if you're a woman who's genuinely trying to understand why men are making this choice without judgment, I want to hear from you. Leave a comment below. Share your perspective. Share your story. Let's build a community of people who understand that winning in life, their happiness, their success, sometimes looks completely different from what society tells us it should look like. If you're spending Christmas solo and you're at peace with that choice, drop a fire emoji in the comments. Let's show the world that there's real strength in choosing your own path. Until next time, I want to leave you with this final thought. Remember to stay strong. Stay independent. Stay authentic to who you really are under all the roles and expectations. Remember that winning doesn't look the same for everyone, and that's not just okay, that's exactly as it should be. The man who has the courage to define success on his own terms, who has the wisdom to choose peace over performance, who has the strength to stand alone when necessary rather than compromise his values or well-being for approval. That man is truly free. And freedom, real freedom, authentic freedom, the freedom to live life on your own terms, that's the greatest gift you can give yourself. Not just on Christmas, but every single day of your life. So whether you're surrounded by family tonight or sitting alone in peaceful solitude, I hope you're making choices that honor who you really are. I hope you're living with intention rather than obligation. I hope you're choosing peace over performance. And I hope you have the courage to keep choosing yourself, even when the world questions that choice. Merry Christmas on your terms. Until next time, peace out.